I'm super excited to tell you that I was able to get many of our questions answered from Ancestry's own Crista Cowan. We talked about so many things that I had to break this up into a few episodes, so you'll see more of her coming up in the next few weeks. Now, in this episode, we're talking about newspapers.com and the exciting new indexing that they're doing over there, as well as the family data collection and the One World Tree. Now, if you're wondering what the One World Tree and the family data collection is, well, I wanted to get some more information about that too, so that's one of the reasons why I asked. So, well, first, let me introduce myself. My name is Connie Knox. I am a lifelong genealogist here to help you go further, faster, and factually with your family history research. Now, this is a footnotes episode, and I like to call them footnotes because it's in the footnotes where the real sources are, and today's real source is Crista Cowan from Ancestry. She is another lifelong genealogist and has been working at Ancestry since about 2004. You may know her as the Barefoot Genealogist, hosting her own videos on YouTube and social media. Here she is, Crista Cowan. Krista's back in the house. Woo-hoo, we're back. I have
happy to be here.
Well, welcome back. I have a ton of questions on a variety of subjects that we've just been piling up, and so I can't wait to jump into it. So you ready?
Yeah, for sure. Let's go.
This is kind of like our rapid fire, but not rapid fire, like we did at Root Tech. Okay, so now I know that Ancestry recently put out a big notice about the marriage records and previously the obituary indexing that was going on the Ancestry.com the newspapers.com platform. Tell us what's going on there. Tell us about that, because I'm excited about it, but I want them to hear from you.
Yeah, for sure. So some people may know that Ancestry also owns a website called newspapers.com. They have digitized more than 600 million pages of newspapers and just continue to add to that collection, both historic newspapers that they're able to acquire, and then also new newspapers as they become available through arrangements with the publishers that own those papers. And one of the challenges for genealogists on Ancestry, which is where our trees live and where we do most of our searching, is that they either didn't know those newspapers existed, or they didn't know how to search them and integrate that information with their tree on Ancestry. So Ancestry has employed artificial intelligence to scan all 600 million plus of those newspaper pages. And we have created searchable indexes of the obituaries and then now this new collection of marriages. So the indexes that allow you to search those newspapers are now available on Ancestry. And then if you want to view the images of those newspapers, you can click through over to newspapers.com.
So, okay, so this is really cool because this is very powerful, I think. I've already been playing in there. I'm familiar with it, but just to be clear, what all is being extracted? So, for example, let's say a marriage announcement. We've got the bride and the groom and maybe some other family members that are, talked about in the article. Is all of that information being extracted in the index?
Yeah, so the index is including any immediate family relationships that we can extract through that artificial intelligence. So if it says, the father or the parents of the bride are, and then it lists their names, we've trained a computer to read that and extract that information. And then we also will include information like occupations of the bride and groom or education. A lot of times marriage announcements will list where they graduated from high school, if they're currently enrolled in college, any information about hometowns, like any biographical information that we can train a computer to extract from those. We've done it. And so sometimes you'll just see a little index with just the bride and the groom and the marriage date and place. And sometimes you'll see an index entry that includes fields and fields and fields of information.
Well, that is really cool. I did not know that about some of the location information. I'm assuming that is the same kind of technology for the obituary indexes.
It is. It's actually a technology that we developed back when we were indexing city directories, and then we improved or enhanced that when we did our yearbook collection several years ago. And then we applied it to the newspapers obituaries collection that we launched last year. This year, it's the newspaper marriages collection. And so if you start thinking about newspapers, you can imagine what other bits of information might be in there that we might be able to apply the same technology to in the coming years.
Oh, the wheels are turning, you know.
Right?
I'm sitting there thinking, ooh, what else can we pull out of there? Very cool. That is some really cool stuff. Now, let me ask you though, can anybody with a basic subscription to newspapers.com access these records?
So the index to both the obituaries and the marriages is available on Ancestry, and you can access the index with whatever level of subscription you have. So for example, what we've just released is the US newspapers marriages index. So if you have a US or world subscription to Ancestry, you'll have access to that index. If you want to click through to view the image, you do have to have a subscription to newspapers.com. There are two levels of subscription there. So the first one is a basic subscription, and those are typically going to be the newspapers that are pre-1923, so they're no longer in copyright. Most of the newspapers after 1923 are still in copyright, and so extra royalties are due to the publishers. And so those are part of what we call our publishers extra subscription, and that's done based on views and stuff. And so you have to have a subscription, an additional subscription to newspapers to access those post 1923 newspapers.
Well, that alone is just like so huge. I mean, I'll tell you what, I have solved more puzzles in newspapers than anything.
Yeah, me too.
So kudos to you guys. So I ran across this myself as I was doing some research and actually recording another episode. And I ran across two things. The first one being the family data collection. Now, what exactly is that?
Well, there's actually 4 databases. So we have just one that's just called, I believe, the Family Data Collection. Then we also have one that is births, one that's marriages, and one that is deaths. And like all databases on Ancestry, whenever you find a record, if you just kind of scroll down on the page, you'll see the source information, usually with a little learn more link, which takes you to the database page. That then usually has a more full database description. So I always encourage people, no matter what database you're looking at on Ancestry, if it's the first time you've ever used that set of records, make it a habit to read that database description. Mm-hmm. In the case of the Family Records Collection, they are a series of records from professional genealogists that Ancestry purchased when we were very first a company and trying to acquire records. Imagine this brand, the internet was brand new. It was 1997, 1998, and we were a brand new company. Now imagine walking into an archive and saying, we'd like to take your precious records that you've preserved for hundreds of years and digitize them and put them online. And the response was usually something like, you want to do what with what and put it where and who are you? And so in those early years, Ancestry acquired records from whomever was willing to sell us copies or license copies to us. So that Family Records Collection, like I said, is just a series of records from professional genealogists who had indexed the names that they had researched over 40, 50 years of their career, and we made those searchable. The challenge with that particular collection is those genealogists are no longer living or no longer in business. And so there's no way to get back to the original source of what they provided, but it is a good set of clues.
Yeah. So that it was exactly where I was going with that, was because you can't really drill into it. And so it's kind of like, oh, all right. So we think there's some information here, but we don't really know where the original source came from. And just like the family trees that are the public trees that are out there, we kind of have to see if we can get back to the original sources. And sadly, in that collection, it's providing clues, but we can't get back to the original source. So thank you for the answer on that one.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about the One World Tree. That's another source that's listed at Ancestry. Is that the same thing?
No, One World Tree is a little bit different. And actually, that particular database no longer exists. So you may see it used as a source on some people's trees because that's where the original information came from. But One World Tree was an attempt by Ancestry. Wow, it was shortly after I started working at Ancestry, so it's probably been 15 or 16 years ago. Ancestry has not always had trees online. That was kind of a new thing back in the early 2000s. We invited people to put their trees online. It is not our tree experience like you think of it now, that's so dynamic. And then Ancestry took all those trees that had been uploaded, and we made an attempt to
Connect
merge all that information, right, and create a world tree. And One World Tree was supposed to be an index that allowed you to search all of those trees. If you've got a Samuel Mulliner and 93 trees on Ancestry, we wanted to be able to give you one entry for it, one search result that you could then use to go and find those other trees. And it had some inherent problems. It was back in the day when this technology was still pretty new. And like I said, they were static trees. It wasn't the dynamic trees that we have now. And so if people found errors or made changes, those weren't always reflected. So it was an attempt to create a search engine that turned into an index database that eventually took offline.
That's another one we can't dig into, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I just checking because, I've tripped across it so many times, especially in some of my older lines that I haven't touched in a decade. And you said early 2000, I'm thinking that wasn't that long ago. But if you think about the evolution of Ancestry and the trees that we have now are just fabulous. I love them. Hey, Crista, thank you so much for the time. I will leave links to other videos with Crista in them on the screen for you now so you can binge watch some more. All right, it's time for you to go find your ancestors. So until next time, keep on climbing your family tree.